Welcome back, everyone, to the continuation of Lesson 13, Graphing Quadratics in Vertex Form. At the end of our previous video, we had just talked about the steps that we need to do to be able to graph a quadratic in vertex form. Identify the vertex, find the roots, find the y-intercept, and take the reflection of the y-intercept. So now that we know what the steps are, now we're going to graph. So I have quite a few examples of graphing here. Each are going to be slightly different from the next. So it's important that you go through all three of these examples. Two of them are going to be in this video, and then there's going to be one more video with the last example. All right, so graph the equation y equals negative x minus 1 squared plus 4. You must plot 5 points, including the roots and the vertex. So the first thing we do is identify our vertex. Remember, our vertex is our HK. So from our equation, our vertex is 1, 4. Now, we are going to find the roots. Remember, for the roots, we plug 0 into y and solve for x. So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract 4 from both sides. So we get negative 4 is equal to negative x minus 1 squared. Then I have to get rid of this negative in front, so we divide both sides by negative 1. So we have 4 is equal to x minus 1 squared. To undo a squared, we take the square root of both sides. And because we applied the square root, remember, we're going to have plus or minus, and then the square root of 4 is 2, is equal to x minus 1. Now, because we have that plus or minus, remember, we now have to separate it, so we will have two x's that we're solving for. We're going to have x minus 1 is equal to the positive 2, and x minus 1 is equal to the negative 2. So we're going to add 1 to both sides for both equations to solve for x. And we get x is equal to 3 and negative 1. We're now going to write those as points, 3, 0, and negative 1, 0. So those are our x-intercepts. And then the final thing we need to find is the y-intercept, so that way we can then graph it and find its reflection. Remember, for the y-intercept, we're going to plug 0 into x. So I'm going to scooch this up so you're not going to see it, but if you printed these out, you'll see it on your end. So y is equal to negative 0 minus 1 squared plus 4. I like to do a little bit of simplifying before I plug this into my calculator. So this is going to be negative 1 squared plus 4. So now I'm going to plug that whole thing into my calculator, parentheses and all, and we end up with 3. So my y-intercept is at 0, 3. All right, starting from the top, we're going to start plotting. So I plot my vertex first. So 1, 2, 3, 4, vertex. My x-intercepts at 3, 0, and negative 1, 0. And then my y-intercept is at 0, 3, and then the reflection across the axis of symmetry. Once we have those 5 points, we draw a U-shape to the best of our ability. All right, so that is our first graphing example done. We have one more for this video. All right, so our next one, we have y equals 2 times x minus 3 squared minus 2. Again, we start with our vertex. So our vertex is going to be 3 -2. And once you find your points, you can plot them as you go. So this is 3, -2. That's my vertex. Now for the roots, plug 0 into y. So 2 times x minus 3 squared minus 2. Now we need to solve for x. Add 2. So we have 2 is equal to 2 times x minus 3 squared. Then divide by 2. So 1 is equal to x minus 3 squared. Take the square root of both sides, and we have plus or minus, the square root of 1 is 1, is equal to x minus 3. And again, we're now going to separate into 2 equations we can solve. X minus 3 is equal to 1. X minus 3 is equal to -1. For both of them, we add 3. So we have x is equal to 4 and 2. So we're going to have 4, 0 and 2, 0. So now that we have those points, I'm going to graph them. So 4, 0 and 2, 0. All right, looking good so far. Now it's time for the y-intercept. So y is equal to 2 times 0 minus 3 squared minus 2. So 2 times -3 squared minus 2. And we end up with 16. So that's 0, 16. As you can see from, oh, I'm sorry, you can't see that. There you go, 0, 16. As you can see from our graph only goes up to 10. So this y-intercept is too big. So we need to do our table of values. Again, we are going to come up here to our x-intercepts, and we're going to select the x on either side of the roots. So now for our table of values, we're going to put 1 and 5 into 2 times x minus 3 squared minus 2, and we'll get our y. So 2 times 1 minus 3 squared minus 2, 2 times 5 minus 3 squared minus 2. And when we plug both of these into our calculator, both end up being 6. So 1, 6, and then 5, 6. Now we just connect as a parabola. And there we go. All right, we have one more example, so one more video. We'll see you guys in the next one.